I still remember the way the air smelled that morning inside the courtroom, like polished wood, brewing coffee, and tension. My palms were damp, my pulse steady but sharp, the kind of heartbeat you feel behind your eyes. The lawyers whispered, the judge adjusted his glasses, and Ethan, my husband, sat with that same arrogant smirk that had once made me blush, but now made my stomach turn. When his lawyer leaned back with that smug confidence, I almost laughed. Because if there's one thing I've learned in the past 2 years, it's that everything can flip in an instant. People change, stories shift, truth finds its way through even the smallest cracks. But the girl I used to be? She didn't know that yet. At 23, I thought love was enough. That if you gave your heart, no matter how imperfectly, someone would protect it with the same devotion. I believed in happy endings, summer weddings, and morning coffee together before work. I believed in him. I met Ethan at a marketing conference in Dallas, of all places. I had been working at a small agency called Brightline Creative, an optimistic name for a company with 5 overworked employees sharing one ancient espresso machine. He was presenting a talk about brand strategy for his family's company, Halbrook International, a sprawling conglomerate that owned everything from construction firms to bottled water companies. I remember sitting in that dim hotel ballroom, wearing my best thrift store blazer, taking notes like my job depended on it. When the session ended, he walked right up to me. He had that calm, polished energy that said he never needed to hurry for anything. "You look like you actually listened," he said. And I did something I never did back then. I blushed and fumbled for a clever response that didn't come. He followed up after the conference with an invitation to dinner at a steakhouse called McKinley's Prime, one of those places where they hand you the menu like it's a sacred scroll. I was from a small town in Illinois where dinner out meant Olive Garden or maybe a fairground food truck in summer. So when he ordered a Bordeaux I couldn't pronounce and the waiter nodded like this was routine, I felt transported. He talked about innovation, business ethics, philanthropy, and compliments, lots of them, for me. He said I was intelligent in a way that felt personal, not like a line. By dessert, I was convinced I'd met the man who saw me. Over the next few months, my life turned into a highlight reel. Weekend trips to Chicago, dinners at rooftop restaurants, surprise bouquets showing up at my office. At Christmas, he took me to Aspen, where I wore a cashmere coat for the first time and tried to pretend I wasn't terrified of skiing. Everyone adored him. His father, Dwight, was a serious man, always in navy suits, but with kind eyes that followed conversations closely. His mother, well, polite but distant. They approved of me more quickly than I expected, which made me feel both flattered and indebted. When Ethan proposed 6 months later at a vineyard in Sonoma, I said yes without hesitation. I can still see it, the way the lights twinkled in the vines behind him, how he knelt and said, "You're my forever." It felt cinematic, perfect, like one of those slow-motion movie moments where the world pauses just long enough to let you believe in destiny. It was his father who brought up the prenup. We were sitting in their house, the kind of mansion that looked like it was built for political fundraisers, and he leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "It's just procedure, dear," he said softly, "for both of your protection." Ethan didn't say a word. He just squeezed my hand. I didn't want to seem suspicious or ungrateful, so when their lawyer sent the documents, I signed. I was too in love to read closely. The first 6 months of marriage were blissful. We lived in a glass-walled condo overlooking Lake Michigan, all marble countertops and imported art I didn't know how to appreciate. I cooked on weekends, homemade chili, Southern-style biscuits from my grandmother's recipe, pancakes shaped like hearts. Ethan would always thank me with a distracted kiss before rushing out to handle business. Slowly, those business trips lengthened. His tone changed. The first time he snapped at me in public, it felt like a knife made of confusion more than pain. He started criticizing little things, how I dressed, how I spoke to waiters, how much time I spent on my freelance projects. "You don't need to work," he said once. "It makes me look bad if my wife has to freelance." I remember freezing mid-sentence, my mouth dry, forcing a smile as he left the kitchen. I tried to tell myself it was stress. Marriage, like any career, has an adjustment period, right? But soon, my days filled with silence. He'd come home late, smelling faintly of perfume that wasn't mine. I cooked less, ate more takeout, and found myself scrolling through social media, jealous of women who looked confident, loved, free. I called my mom once crying, telling her I didn't recognize my own life. She said, "Sweetheart, marriages take work, but not this kind." I didn't listen. I told myself she didn't understand, that love was worth patience. Then came the night that changed everything. I'd baked his favorite dessert, key lime pie. He didn't touch it. He walked straight to his office, closed the door, and stayed there until midnight. When he finally came out, he was on the phone, laughing, calling someone baby. My stomach rotated cold. When he saw me, he froze, stared, then said, "Don't start. That's all. Don't start." As if I were a disturbance, an inconvenience in my own home. I didn't sleep that night. I lay awake staring at the city lights flickering outside, realizing that the man I married loved control, not commitment. I started saving money secretly. I took on remote clients, used a hidden credit card to store payments. I created a folder titled Recipes on my laptop that actually held screenshots of texts, bank statements, and snippets of documents from the Hallbrook office printer. Every betrayal made me stronger, quieter, more calculating. I wasn't the girl with trembling hands anymore. I was gathering evidence that one day would matter. The final straw wasn't the cheating, it was the humiliation. He brought a woman to a charity gala we'd both planned to attend. When he saw me there, he said casually, "Oh, didn't I tell you? She's with the foundation now." The whispers were immediate. Faces turned away. I excused myself, went to the restroom, and threw my engagement ring in the trash, breathing so hard my chest hurt. The next morning, I called a lawyer. Filing for divorce was like breathing through broken glass. His legal team, led by a man named Mr. Fuller from Croswell and Tate, wasted no time sending threats. They said I'd get nothing, that the prenup was airtight. My own lawyer, a weary man named Thomas Crane, reviewed the terms and sighed. It's harsh, but legal. For a week, I felt completely destroyed. I stayed at a cheap hotel near Evanston, eating microwave mac and cheese and scrolling through old wedding photos. I tried to tell myself money didn't matter, that freedom would be enough. But then, I thought of his mockery, the years I gave, the way he had stripped away my dignity piece by piece. I couldn't walk away empty, not after everything. I went back to the storage unit where I'd kept boxes from my old life. In one of them, buried behind framed photos, was a sealed envelope with Dwight Hallbrook's handwriting on it, Ethan's father. He had passed away the previous year, a quiet man whose kindness had always felt out of place in that family. The envelope simply read, "Private copy, marriage documents." My heart pounded as I tore it open. Inside were 2 contracts. One matched the prenup, the other was something else, an addendum signed by Dwight himself, notarized and stamped with the Hallbrook estate seal. It stated that in the event of divorce, the spouse would receive 60% of the family assets, contingent on moral termination grounds, essentially if Ethan destroyed the marriage through misconduct. My breath caught. I read it again and again, tracing the embossed seal with disbelief. Had Ethan never seen this? Or had he forgotten it existed? Maybe Dwight had felt sorry for me. Maybe he had seen his son for what he truly was. Whatever the reason, it meant everything. For the first time in months, hope flickered like a match in the dark. I scheduled a meeting with Thomas the next morning at his Midtown Chicago office. He stared at the document for a long time, then smiled faintly. "This changes everything," he said. "If this holds up in court, we have a real case." He warned me it wouldn't be easy. They'd fight, they'd smear me, maybe even claim forgery. But I was ready. For once, fear didn't paralyze me. It focused me. The weeks leading up to the trial were grueling. I attended prep sessions where I learned courtroom etiquette, how to remain calm under provocation, how to breathe evenly if he tried to intimidate me. I practiced for hours in my apartment with Thomas playing the opposing lawyer. I memorized every clause, every signature, every minor loophole. Ethan's team kept pushing hearings back, hoping exhaustion or fear would make me fold. It didn't. Each delay only sharpened my resolve. Friends started reaching out again. Megan, my college roommate, invited me for coffee at a small place called Greenfinch Cafe, where we sipped vanilla lattes by the window while she told me, "You're tougher than you think." I smiled, but I didn't tell her half of it. I couldn't risk leaks or pity. At night, I dreamed of the courtroom. Sometimes I'd see Ethan's expression, mocking, calm, unbothered, and I'd wake up furious and sweating. But then I'd look at the folder on my nightstand, thick with evidence, and remember why I couldn't stop now. During the final prep session, Thomas said, "He'll probably underestimate you. That's your greatest advantage. Stay composed. Don't let emotion make you small." The night before trial, I made myself dinner, simple comfort food, grilled cheese with tomato soup, a Coke Zero, and a slice of key lime pie from the bakery downstairs. A small act of defiance, maybe. I took one bite too many and ended up crying. Not from sadness this time, but from something closer to release. The next morning, I walked into the courthouse in a pale blue dress and trench coat, hair in a low ponytail, minimal makeup. The reporters outside buzzed like bees, flashes everywhere. Inside, the air felt both cold and suffocating. Ethan sat at the defense table, tailored suit, no tie, immaculate. When he glanced up and spotted me, a half smile touched his lips, the same one from 5 years ago at the conference. But now I saw it differently. It wasn't confidence, it was entitlement. As the opening statements began, I felt my heartbeat syncing with the rhythm of the judge's gavel. The opposing counsel spoke about frivolous claims and malicious intentions. Thomas let them talk. He waited. And when it was our turn, he rose and said, "Your Honor, we have evidence previously undisclosed that redefines the terms of this contract." I saw Ethan glance sideways, confused. Halfway through that day's proceedings, my mind drifted for a moment. I thought about the thousands of women who'd been told they were powerless in rooms like this one, who'd stayed quiet to keep peace. I promised myself silently that if my story ever reached them somehow, I'd want it to mean something. If you made it this far, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next part of the story. Leave a comment below with a short message like, "Justice told in the calmest voice." Your reactions help more people see stories like this one. The courtroom buzzed as Thomas placed the folder in front of the judge. "This," he said, "was signed before the original prenup and carries binding authority by the decedent Dwight Halbrook Sr." Gasps rippled through the room. Ethan whispered something sharply to his lawyer, who seemed visibly rattled. I watched without flinching. Inside, every wound, every moment of humiliation, every sleepless night, felt like it had led exactly to this point. The judge reviewed the document quietly. Then he looked up and said, "We'll resume after lunch for verification." As we stood up to leave, Ethan turned slightly toward me, his mouth set in a tight line. "You think you're clever," he muttered under his breath. I met his eyes briefly and said, "No, I think I'm finally awake." Outside, the wind carried the cold scent of November through the Chicago streets. Reporters shouted, cameras flashed, but their noise felt distant. I clutched my coat tighter, my folder pressed to my chest like a shield, and walked down the courthouse steps without looking back. A part of me was terrified of what the next day might bring, but another part, the stronger one, felt an unfamiliar peace rising in my chest. Because for the first time in a very long time, the story was mine again. The morning after that first hearing, I woke up before dawn, staring at the gray ceiling of my motel room. The old radiator rattled like a tired engine. I had barely slept, but there was something electric in the air. Fear, yes, but also the kind of adrenaline that comes right before a storm breaks. I brewed bitter instant coffee, the kind that always tasted like rust, and took a slow sip while rereading the photocopies of the hidden contract. It still didn't feel real. Somewhere deep down, I expected to wake up and find out it had all been some wild dream born from desperation. But there it was in my hands, stamped and sealed with Dwight Halbrook's signature, my unexpected shield in a war I never asked for. I left early, driving through the half-empty streets of downtown Chicago, the kind of morning where fog hugs the buildings and traffic lights look suspended in space. On the radio, a host was talking about politics and rising gas prices, things that didn't seem to matter in my small, spinning world. When I pulled into the courthouse parking lot, I saw Thomas already waiting outside with 2 cups from Brew & Bean, our unofficial caffeine sponsor since this mess began. "You're early," he said, handing me a cup. "Couldn't sleep," I replied, taking it gratefully. He smiled, though his eyes were tired. "Let's win this one." Inside, the hallways hummed with a low buzz of activity. The opposing team was already there. Ethan, his lawyer Fuller, and that assistant who always wore pencil skirts and a tight smile. The same woman I once overheard him call baby. Funny how irony circles back when you least expect it. Ethan avoided my gaze as we sat down, but his posture screamed entitlement. He was the kind of man who thought the world existed to prove him right. When the judge entered, silence fell. The next hour blurred into a tense exchange of legal argument and evidence review. Fuller questioned the authenticity of the hidden contract, hinting at forgery, but the notary's name, the official seal, and archived records at Halbrook Estates Law Division all aligned perfectly. Thomas moved with quiet precision, dismantling every objection like he'd rehearsed it 1,000 times. Each time I looked at that document displayed on the projector, I thought of Dwight's face, The soft sincerity of a man who must have known what his son was capable of and decided to protect someone in advance. That thought both warmed and broke me. By midday, the judge called for a lunch break. My stomach growled, a reminder that I hadn't eaten since dawn. Thomas and I crossed the street to a small diner called Maple and Main, one of those classic spots with checkered floors, vinyl booths, and a menu laminated from years of use. We ordered grilled cheese sandwiches and fries, the kind that come out greasy but perfect with ketchup. "You did incredible in there," Thomas said. "You stayed calm. That's half the battle." I toyed with a fry. "I feel like everything depends on this moment." He nodded, wiping his hands on a napkin. "It does, but you're ready. Don't doubt it now." When we returned, Ethan's side looked noticeably less smug. I could feel his irritation radiating across the room like heat from asphalt. Fuller's tone shifted too. Less dominance, more defense. That's when I began to realize something. Power isn't loud. It's quiet, patient, calculated. It's the one who says less but sees more. For years, I'd been the one silenced by his ego, trained to think calmness meant submission. Now I understood calm was the language of control. The second half of that day felt like reclaiming my voice piece by piece. Fuller asked questions meant to twist the story, implying I had manipulated Dwight or taken advantage of his declining health before he passed. I held eye contact with every response, measured and steady. "Mr. Halbrook was a man of integrity," I said clearly. "He made his decisions because he believed in fairness, not excuses." The murmurs behind me told me the courtroom could feel it too, a shift in gravity. When the judge called recess for document examination, I leaned back slightly, exhaling for the first time in hours. My fingers trembled beneath the table, but I wouldn't let anyone see it. Then, from the corner of my eye, I saw Ethan leaning to whisper something to Fuller, his expression tight with panic. That alone was enough to keep me steady. I drove home that evening to the temporary apartment I was staying in near Old Town. The street smelled faintly of rain and fried food from the tavern downstairs. In my kitchen, I heated up leftover pad thai from Chang's Express and ate straight from the carton, too tired to wash dishes. I opened my journal, a habit I'd started after the separation, and wrote everything I was too proud to say out loud. I am done being the quiet one. I am done being his shadow. I am done apologizing for wanting justice. I closed it, sat back, and for the first time in a long time, smiled at the silence. Over the following days, Ethan tried every tactic. His lawyers sent offers, confidential settlements wrapped in manipulative tones. "Walk away quietly," they said. "This will all vanish." Their favorite phrase was, "Don't embarrass yourself." He used to say that to me too, back when I'd challenge him on minor things. Where we lived, who we saw, how I dressed. It wasn't advice, it was conditioning. This time, I ignored them all and waited. A week later, the next hearing began. The judge admitted new evidence verifying the contract's legitimacy, and Fuller's composure began cracking. Ethan, however, went from arrogance to visible rage. When the opposing testimony played, a recorded phone call between Ethan and a corporate board member gloating about how I'd get nothing but pity checks, even the court stenographer looked uncomfortable. I watched his downfall in real time, every smirk vanishing under the weight of his own greed. At recess, Thomas turned to me. "He underestimated you," he whispered. "They all did." And I just nodded, remembering the nights alone when I doubted myself, when I almost gave up. Those moments suddenly seemed like someone else's memories now, an old life left behind. The emotional toll was heavy, though. I started having nightmares again. Ethan shouting, rooms spinning, doors that wouldn't open. To clear my mind, I'd walk by Lake Michigan at sunset, watching the pale orange light scatter across the water. Sometimes I'd stop at Dockside Market, grab a hot dog with extra mustard and eat it leaning against a rail, surrounded by joggers, tourists, and families strolling with ice cream cones. Simple things reminded me that life existed beyond this courtroom world, that I was still breathing, rebuilding, waiting for something cleaner than revenge, something closer to peace. As the case drew closer to final judgment, the press began catching wind. I saw headlines online. "Socialite divorce takes unexpected turn." They painted me as either a gold digger or a victim, nothing in between. People love simple stories, but real life never fits cleanly into labels. I didn't hate Ethan anymore, not exactly. It was deeper, something like fatigue mixed with clarity. I just wanted my freedom back, and maybe a hint of justice for the version of me who had bowed too many times to his control. I thought about Dwight often. I imagined him watching from somewhere far away, that quiet smile on his face saying, "Now you see what I meant." That thought comforted me in strange ways. I wanted to believe good people leave echoes behind, and sometimes those echoes become documents that save lives. The night before the final day in court, I couldn't sleep again. I baked chocolate chip cookies at 2 in the morning, the way my mom used to when she was stressed, and watched old sitcom reruns on TV. The scent filled the apartment, sweet and grounding. Between bites of warm chocolate and soft dough, I whispered to myself, "This is almost over. You are almost free." Outside, the city skyline glowed in the dark like a breathing organism, alive, indifferent, beautiful. If you're still listening and feeling every heartbeat of this story, please remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the ending. Leave a comment below saying something like, "Strength told through silence," to share what this moment means to you. Your support keeps stories like this alive. The next morning, when I entered the courtroom, it was quieter than usual. Maybe everyone could sense that this would be the deciding session. The air carried that strange anticipation, heavy and sacred. The judge reviewed his notes carefully. Ethan's lawyer seemed tense, legs shaking slightly under the table. When he tried to raise another objection, the judge cut him off sharply. "Mr. Fuller, the evidence is sufficient. Proceed to closing statements." Thomas stood and spoke with calm authority. "Your Honor, this case is not only about money. It's about integrity, about promises made, broken, and preserved. This second contract wasn't an accident. It was intent. A father protecting fairness from his son's arrogance." I watched the judge's expression soften slightly as he took it in. Then Ethan took the stand. His lawyer must have thought a personal speech might win pity, but what came out instead was a rambling justification, a cascade of half-truths and self-praise. He said I'd been pleasant but aimless, that marriage to him had been a responsibility more than a partnership. The words hit me like cold rain, but I stayed still. When Thomas cross-examined, he caught Ethan contradicting himself twice within minutes. Even the spectators noticed. The man who once commanded every room he entered now looked small, untethered. After hours of deliberation, the gavel sounded. We were told the ruling would be delivered the next day at 10 a.m. The entire courtroom exhaled at once. I walked outside and leaned against the courthouse wall, eyes half closed, letting the wind hit my face. My phone buzzed with messages from friends, news alerts, even requests for interviews. I ignored them all. I found a coffee cart across the street and ordered a cappuccino, sipping it slowly as though it was the first normal thing I'd done in months. Later that evening, I met Megan at a jazz bar downtown called the Blue Lantern. The music seeped through the dim glow of neon signs and whiskey glasses. She raised her glass to me. "You did it," she said. I smiled faintly. Not yet, but almost. We didn't talk about Ethan or the case again. We just talked about small things. Her new job, my plans to maybe start consulting again. When the band played an old Ella Fitzgerald number, I closed my eyes, letting the notes unwind the weeks of tension. Walking home after midnight, I realized something strange. I wasn't angry anymore. The revenge I had dreamed of wasn't rage. It was redirection. Every moment of pain he caused had become fuel for the voice he tried to silence. The hidden contract wasn't just a legal twist of fate. It was a symbol of every forgotten truth, every underestimated woman, every quiet person who decided to speak at the right time. When I reached my apartment, I placed my briefcase on the counter and looked out the window. The city pulsed below, lights flickering across glass towers. Somewhere out there, he was probably stewing, blaming the system, screaming at the walls that once protected him. But I wasn't his concern anymore. Tomorrow would decide everything. But I already felt victorious in ways words couldn't describe, because the real win wasn't in the verdict. It was in my reflection on that window, unbroken, unbent, alive. I woke up before sunrise the next morning, staring at the pale orange light bleeding into my apartment from the narrow blinds. The smell of last night's coffee drifted faintly through the air, sharp and comforting at once. It was a Friday, the day the judge would deliver the ruling. Outside, the early commuters of Chicago were already moving, horns echoing faintly under the rhythm of waking city life. For a few quiet minutes, I lay there listening to it, the sound of an ordinary day, still unaware that for me, everything was about to change. I brewed a fresh pot of coffee, buttered a piece of toast, and stared out the window as I ate, watching buses glide by like silent ships on asphalt seas. It was strange how calm I felt compared to the chaos of the weeks before. I guess sometimes when you're at the edge, fear turns into clarity. When I arrived at the courthouse, the building was surrounded by press again, microphones and cameras hovering like flies over anticipation. I kept my eyes forward, ignoring the shouted questions and flashing bulbs. Inside, the air felt thick and expectant. Thomas greeted me with a quiet nod, his suit sharp, his voice steady. "How are you feeling?" he asked. I smiled faintly. "Ready?" He studied me for a second before replying. "You look like someone who already knows she's won." I didn't say it out loud, but maybe I did. Ethan walked in 5 minutes later, flanked by his remaining allies, lawyers, assistants, and insincere friends who still believed proximity to him was power. He looked exhausted, the careless confidence gone. I barely recognized the man I once adored, the one who used to bring me flowers from Kensington Market and kiss my forehead goodnight. I sat perfectly still, hands folded, eyes locked on the judge's bench. When the gavel finally struck wood, every heart in that room seemed to pause. The judge read his notes in silence before speaking. After thorough consideration of the evidence, including the addendum contract verified by the Holbrook Estate Archives, this court finds in favor of the petitioner, Mrs. Hayes. My heart jolted at the sound of my name, my real name again, not the one that had lived under his shadow. The courtroom erupted in murmurs. The judge continued, "The financial division will proceed according to the document's stated percentages, awarding 60% of shared assets to the petitioner." I heard the words, but they registered slowly, like soft waves reaching the shore of my understanding. Then it hit. I had won. Ethan leaped to his feet, visibly livid, shouting something about manipulation, about how none of this was fair. The judge called for order. Thomas pressed my arm lightly, signaling not to react. My silence infuriated Ethan more than anything else ever could. His voice cracked, and for a moment, I saw the truth of him, the small, broken man beneath all that wealth and arrogance. As officers moved toward him, his defiance melted into defeat. The man who once controlled every room now stood powerless in front of the same system he had always believed was his to command. As soon as the session adjourned, reporters surged toward us, but Thomas steered me out quickly through a side door. The chill of late autumn hit me hard, but it was the kind of cold that felt honest. Outside, the wind carried the scent of roasted chestnuts from a street vendor nearby. I stopped, bought a small paper cone, and ate quietly as we walked. The taste, warm and smoky, grounded me. Thomas laughed softly. "Chestnuts after victory. I should have brought champagne." I smiled, because champagne belonged to people celebrating illusions. Chestnuts felt more real. We took a short detour to a cafe around the corner, a little place called Elmside Coffee House, the kind of spot filled with law students and young writers tapping away at laptops. I ordered a caramel latte, heavy on whipped cream, and slid into a booth by the window. As steam spiraled above my cup, I realized something surprising. I wasn't happy in the way I expected. There was relief, yes, an overwhelming sense of finality, but also a hollow space underneath it all. I had built my strength in opposition to Ethan for so long that I almost didn't know how to exist without that battle. Thomas noticed my silence. "You'll feel lighter soon," he said softly. "Freedom has to settle in before it feels real." That afternoon, I walked down to the pier alone. The lake spread vast and glittering, waves slapping gently against the docks. I took off my heels, sat on the edge with my feet dangling over the cold water, and let the wind whip through my hair. The city skyline glowed behind me like an old promise kept. As I sat there, I thought of everything I'd lost: time, trust, innocence, and everything I'd gained: clarity, courage, peace. For the first time in years, I wasn't surviving his world. I was living mine. I went home that evening and cooked for myself. Real food, the kind that fills you with warmth and memory. I seared salmon, roasted asparagus, poured a small glass of Chardonnay, and set the table for one. When I took that first bite, I closed my eyes and felt the salt of both the fish and my tears. The quiet was no longer suffocating. It was sanctuary. The next morning, headlines filled with my name, twisted versions of my story spilling across glossy pages. Holbrook heir loses fortune to ex-wife. Revenge or justice? The blonde who outsmarted a billionaire. I closed the browser after seeing the third one and decided I didn't owe the world an explanation. Let them make their stories. I knew the truth, and that was enough. In the weeks that followed, I moved out of the city. I found a small cottage by the water near Haven Point, 2 hours north. The house had peeling paint, a screened porch, and a fireplace that crackled like laughter when it burned. I spent my days organizing my new life, setting up bank accounts, finishing paperwork, cooking pancakes on lazy mornings. The kind with blueberries and maple syrup. The kind my mother used to make when we'd sit at the kitchen counter talking about dreams that hadn't come true yet. One morning, I stood flipping a pancake when I suddenly laughed, realizing it was the first time I'd laughed like that in years. Nothing forced, nothing cautious, just simple joy. Some evenings, I'd drive into town to a diner called Miller's Corner, where truckers sat swapping road stories and families shared slices of apple pie. They got to know me slowly, calling me the quiet lady by the lake. I liked it that way. Sometimes I'd bring my laptop, sketching ideas for a small startup agency I wanted to build. Something ethical this time, focused on helping women-owned brands find their voice in the chaos of digital advertising. I named it Awake and Able. It felt right. One afternoon, as I was leaving the diner, I saw a man reading a newspaper at the counter. The headline showed Ethan's face. The caption mentioned bankruptcy, investigations into corporate fraud. I felt no thrill, no glee, just closure. The man who once measured his worth by power was learning what life stripped of control looked like. I whispered softly to no one in particular. Good. Maybe now he'll see what he built. Then I turned and walked out into the golden light of evening. If you've been watching this story unfold and felt even a fragment of its pulse in your chest, now is the moment to support it. Like this video, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you'll never miss moments that remind you hope always finds a way back. Comment below a line such as, "Freedom tastes better than victory," to share the essence of what this journey means to you. As winter came, the lake froze over in parts. I'd sit by the fireplace wrapped in a knit blanket, sipping hot chocolate with whipped cream melting on top. I'd think of that girl who once signed a contract she didn't read, believing love meant trust without boundaries. I'd think of the woman she became, the one who fought quietly, who learned that real strength isn't loud, it's steady, it's patient. Sometimes, in the stillness, I'd hear Dwight's voice in memory. Protect fairness. Always. I would smile and whisper, "Thank you." I did. By spring, I had rebuilt nearly everything. Career, confidence, trust. I hired 2 employees, both women, both survivors of situations not unlike mine. We worked out of a small co-working space above a bookstore named Page Turner Co., smelling of old paper and roasted coffee beans. Clients trickled in slowly, and within months, we had steady contracts. At the end of every week, we'd celebrate with donuts from Sweet Crumb Bakery across the street. Boston cream for me, powdered for them. Those small victories mattered more than courtroom wins ever could. Sometimes I'd get emails from people who had read about the case. Some wrote out of curiosity, others gratitude. One message stayed with me. "Your story gave me courage to leave." I replied simply, "Then you already won." In those quiet replies, I found the purpose I never expected from all of this. Maybe that was the gift hidden beneath all the pain. Not revenge, but a voice strong enough to echo beyond my own life. Months passed before I ever saw Ethan again. It happened unexpectedly at a hotel lobby in New York where I had a client meeting. He was thinner, paler, wearing a suit that looked borrowed from a better past. He looked at me with something like recognition mixed with regret. "You look well," he said. I smiled politely. "I am." He hesitated before whispering, "You ruined me." I met his eyes evenly. "No," I said quietly. "You did that yourself." Then I turned and left. There was no satisfaction in it, just peace. The kind that doesn't need to be spoken. When I got back to Haven Point that night, the sunset painted the lake in amber and red. I sat on the dock with a cup of tea and thought of how far the journey had carried me. From naive bride to defender of my own worth, from broken silence to steady control. The hero's journey, Joseph Campbell once wrote, ends not with victory over a monster, but with the return home transformed. My home was not a place. It was this stillness, this knowledge that no one would ever decide my destiny again. I watched the first stars appear over the water, small and unassuming but constant, and I understood why endings have to be quiet. Because peace doesn't arrive with noise. It arrives when the dust has nowhere else to fall. I whispered into the wind, half laughing, half crying. I walked out a millionaire, but most of all, I walked out free. The waves murmured their reply, and for the first time, I knew the story had found its resting place. I took another deep breath, feeling the soft rhythm of my heart sinking with the night, and smiled, finally unbound, fully alive, completely my own.